Okay. Yeah, I hope it. Test. Thank you. Now I need to do a trick, right? So for the third time, good morning to you all. No one knows this. My name is Ofir Arkin. I'm the CTO of Insidix, and I'm here to speak about network access control systems and some ways to bypass them. Since we're late, like in 10 minutes, I'll try to go over all the slides in the time that I have. I'll be speaking here, basically introducing what is a network access control solution, what should or may be part of that kind of a solution, how these solutions works, where are the different problems that these solutions suffer from, and also we'll see how we can also bypass many of the different solutions. This should be an interactive discussion, so if you have a question, please raise your hand. I do have a problem to see the far back since these lights like kind of interesting. But if you would like to ask questions during the presentation, please do ask. The presentation is updated on my own personal website, so you can go and download the presentation, the updated presentation from there. It is it's very much different than the presentation that is on the CD. A bit about myself. As I said, I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Insidix. I'm also the founder of the security group, published research papers in different subjects, spoke at various BlackHats for several times in the past, and I also member at the Voice over IP Security Alliance. Okay. So network access control. Well, basically, why do we need it? If you look at the IT today, then we have a lot of different threats on our internal networks. Viruses, worms, information theft, roaming users, and of course the lack of the control of the IT infrastructures. That led some companies to implement security solutions to try to control the access to their internal IT networks. So there's, since I think 2004, a new breed of software and hardware that has emerged that tries to solve this problem of controlling who accesses the internal network. The definition of what is a network access control, and even the term network access control, may vary from one vendor to another. But the general consensus is that this is a set of technologies and defined processes which aims to control the access to the network, of course. I would like to state that network access control is a valid technology, and it is something that you need to consider as part of your internal network security. The problem here is that we don't have any kind of common criteria for network access control. So there is no definition what are the different parts that the network access control should have, and also different vendors may have different parts. There are some different initiatives for network access control, from the Cisco Network Admission Control to the latest Microsoft Network Access Protection to the Trusted Computing Group, to Trusted Network Connect, to others, to the different many vendors that may offer an NAC solution. In a glance, the basics for a network access control solutions must be the ability to detect a new element that connects to the network, and of course the ability to see if that element complies or not with the security policy that has been set before. Another basic capability that must be supported by any network access control solution is the ability to restrict the access of those elements which do not comply to the security policy. But of course, there are other components and other parts of the solution that may or may not be introduced with a vendor's network access control offering. So we've been speaking about the element detection, and there is also authentication, which means the ability to ID and authenticate each user that access the network, no matter where they are authenticating from or which device they are using. This is actually a very tricky one, and it means that if you support authentication and you provide a complete solution, it means that you must have the ability to authenticate those users who remotely connect to your enterprise as well. Endpoint security assessment is basically the ability to assess whether a newly introduced network element complies with the security policy. Usually this is done through using a certain agent, a client, on the checked machine, usually only for Microsoft Windows, checks the operating system, the patches, the patch level, whether or not there is antivirus software, whether it is updated or not, and basically in most cases that's it. Remediation is the ability to say, well, this machine is not compliant with the security policy. Quarantine it to a separate subnet or VLAN, and we'll be talking about these in a few. And then the ability to introduce them to remediation servers that will allow them to fix the issue which prevented them from being connected to the network. Authorization is basically something that most of the network access control solutions lack. Not all of them contains this. But basically authorization is the ability to verify the access rights of a certain user which accesses the network. Basically saying whether it should or shouldn't go to a certain place or access a certain server or resource. And usually it means that the network access control solution need to interact with the authorization schema that might be defined in one of the servers on the network, like Active Directory, Radius, or whatever. Another component which is usually neglected is the post-admission protection, which is usually associated with the continuous monitoring of the users, their actions, and what they're doing on the network. So worms, viruses, malware will still be able to be detected even if the user had been granted access to the network. Usually these share the same similarities as intrusion prevention systems, but it also involves with profiling traffic, profiling user actions, and so forth. So as I said before, the implication means that if we would like to control the access of each and every element that may connect to our network, whether locally or remotely, it means that we need to look at the local network, and we also need to look at the remote connections through VPN or other means. It means that we need to look at how these elements are connected to the network and put the means to control them through that. So on the VPN issue, we need to look at client-based solutions, SSL VPN, IPsec, and basically it will cover all those venues, and it usually will involve a specialized hardware. On the internal network, on that respect, we'll have to have usually special client software that would need to be installed on the elements. And the most important thing that we will have to have is the intimate knowledge with our IT infrastructure in order for us to know how our network looks like and where do we want and how we will install the network access control solution. Questions until now? Okay, it's like everybody are quiet. Okay, we still haven't spoken about anything interesting. Cool. Attack vectors. What can we attack? What is there to attack? Actually, there's a lot to. First of all, and you will see in a few slides that the biggest problem is the solutions architecture. The way a certain solution uses a certain technology in order to first find the elements that are accessing the network. Secondly, the ability to quarantine them? What are the different ways certain technology uses in order to quarantine the elements? And of course, what are the different enforcement methods? We will see that there are a lot of gaps into the element detection and quarantine abilities, as well as the enforcement methods that will allow us to bypass these solutions. And also, you can also try to attack directly the different components that compose the network access control solution, the remediation servers and all those servers that you interact with. There are several advisories out there regarding some of the vendors and their problems on their own remediation and part of the solution. So in this presentation, I will be covering several methods for element detection. I'll talk about the DHCP proxies of the world, about the authenticated DHCP. It's kind of fun because before the presentation, a marketing woman from one of the companies that sells network access control had sent me an email with their NAC offering, so I had to include them in the presentation. Broadcast listeners, switch integration, and Cisco and their 802.1x offering, as well as we'll look at the different hardware manufacturers, the inline devices, the out-of-band devices, and so forth. Before going into the different methods, I would like to say that some examples that are given here are taken directly from the vendor's materials. Some of the methods can apply to different architectures and technologies, even if they are not written specifically for one or another. And of course, other ways of offering that are not covered in this presentation would also, you can cross-reference that information with the information presented here. So, DHCP proxy. Well, the most easiest way to deploy a network access solution is to use some kind of a DHCP proxy relay, or a box that would sit in front of the DHCP server, will get all the DHCP requests from the different elements that uses DHCP on the network, and basically through the usage of an agent will try to assess the security of the element that tries to connect to the network. The exchange of information is very simple. Basically, there is a DHCP request intercepted by the DHCP proxy. The DHCP reply has a non-routable IP subnet, and also, in some cases, static routes for the host side that would prevent the host, try to prevent from the host to access any resources it shouldn't. Then the DHCP proxy software, which is more than a DHCP proxy software, will try to probe for an agent software on the element. Will try to assess the security of that particular element. If remediation is needed, it will introduce the element to the appropriate remediation servers. And then through release and renew, you'll get an IP address when this will be remediated. Well, nothing too complicated. That's also one of the problems of this method. In order to install DHCP proxy is very easy. Anybody that sits in this room, basically, I believe, that works in an environment that uses DHCP, you go with one box. You can use relay agents that will send you the DHCP request. So you get all the installation very fast. The problem is that this is only good for those elements that uses DHCP. So if you're using something else,